Jumbled passages, as the name itself suggests, is a passage of 4 to 6 lines, and you have to rearrange them in order so that it makes sense. So the instructions for this is pretty much the same. Questions below consist of a group of sentences followed by a suggested sequential arrangement. From the options, you obviously have to select the best sequence. Here's the first one. 4 sentences given. You have to identify in which order, if I put these sentences, it would make the best logical sense. D for Delhi.
I think so.
One vote for D.
I just read 2 sentences and voted for it. I need to analyze properly now.
How is this any different from doing it in the exam? I mean, the exam also are you going to just randomly? No. So that's exact. Whatever you are going to do in the end, that's what you do now. C. Multiple people seem to be going in for C. Okay. And that the pursuit of money by whatever design within the law is always benign. A paragraph or a sentence can never start with a conjunction like and. So A cannot be the first one. So option A is also eliminated. It cannot start with A. Obviously, it cannot start with B, but I don't have any option starting with B, so that I don't need to worry about. C says, this is the institutional truth of Wall Street, this you'll be required to believe. But before we refer to something as this, we have to define what it is, right? Before you use the pronoun, you have to use a proper noun. I mean, noun or proper or common noun. So again, C cannot be the beginning because of this and this. So option B is eliminated. So now the question remains, do I go in for C, that is DBAC, or do I go in for D, which is DCAB? So D says, the institutional truth of the financial world holds that association with money implies intelligence. And then B says, and it holds broadly, that greater the amount of money, greater the intelligence. So association of money and intelligence is done in D, and B also talks about the same concept, and lines which talk about the same thing are usually together. So if D has to be followed by B, then C would make sense. So let's see whether DBAC, if read in that order, is meaningful. The institutional truth of the financial world holds that association with money implies intelligence. And it holds broadly that greater the amount of money, the greater the intelligence, and that the pursuit of money by whatever design within the law is always benign. This is the institutional truth of Wall Street. This you'll be required to believe. C obviously brings about everything together, right? And A, B, they do go with each other, but in the reverse order. So D, B, A, C, best option among all the 4, and hence C can be marked as the answer. D, B, A, C, best one. Okay, moving on. Second. Most of you are going in for this one, B, C, D, A. Let's see. The first statement A, then think of by how much our advertising would increase. The word then think of how much is a second step. Then do this. So first, before that, we need some statement which can support it. And D says think of how much our brand the average individual is buying now. Then think of, so D followed by A makes sense. Right, so option D, because A is before D gets eliminated, and here A is split from D by C in between, so eliminated. So now the question is, do I go for DACB or BCDA? If I go for D, think of how much our brand the average individual is buying now. Then it says, then think of by how much our advertising would increase the sales capital. C, overall effectiveness easily calculated by considering the number of buyers and the cost of advertisement. Advertising effectiveness can best be grasped. But if I read it, B seems to be a good place to start. It talks, the entire thing is about advertising effectiveness. Then it goes to talk about other things. So with that in mind, B, C, D, A, that advertising effectiveness can be best grasped intuitively on a per capita basis. Overall effectiveness is easily calculated by considering the number of buyers and cost of advertising. Think of how much our brand the average individual is buying now. Then think of by how much our advertising would increase the sales levels. So again, C in this case, B, C, D, A is a good option to go with. Got this one? So B, C, D, A, best option, right? Okay, next one. B for Bombay. A, C, B, D. Anything else? Let's see. Now, it is but obvious that A is the beginner because every single option starts with A. So that goes without saying that A is definitely my beginner. Now, B says the staple rhetoric that was for so long dished out also belongs to the bipolar world.
Also.
So the word also indicates that B cannot be the second sentence because something has to belong somewhere.
It's following something.
And this statement follows that the staple rhetoric that was for so long dished also belongs to the bipolar world. Okay. So B cannot be second, and if B cannot be second, then the first option is eliminated. A cannot be followed by B. Now, the old equations based on the Cold War and on non-alignment no longer hold. Okay. And D, but contrary to much of what is being said and written, it is multipolar rather than unipolar world that appears to be emerging out of recent events. Okay. Now, B talks about also belonging to something of yesterday. C says something is no longer holding good, means something is no longer valid. So, C, something no longer is valid and something also belongs to the old world. Both C and B can be together and in that order. And finally, after talking about what was of yesterday, the past, the old equations, D sums it up. Contrary to much of what is being said and written, because a rhetoric is what you say. A rhetoric is basically asking a question for which you don't expect an answer, right? So you are saying what is the rhetoric, and then it says contrary to what is being said and written, blah 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 blah. So D can be the end in this case. So A, C, B, D becomes my answer, making option B the best possible choice in this case. Correct? A, C, B, D, best thing. Okay. A, B, C, D, the very same sequence as it is given.
So D is an opening statement kind of explaining what cognitive age is.
Okay. So then
So C problem.
DCAB.
Yes.
Okay.
See.
Now A says past research has uncovered the fact that cognitive age is inversely related to life satisfaction. Okay, relation between age and life satisfaction is given. B says a person may feel young or old irrespective of chronological age. It's a very generic sentence, it doesn't tell me anything about where it could be. C, that is, the younger an elder person feels, the more likely he or she is to be satisfied with life in general. Now, this is an example of age and satisfaction. So, C definitely comes somewhere after A, because the discovery is about the relationship of age and satisfaction, and C only gives me the explanation of this, and an explanation comes after the basic explanation. Let's see. So A should be followed by C, and if A is followed by C, then that eliminates option C. Then D, cognitive age is a psychological construct that refers to one's subjective assessment of one's age. Right? So D actually introduces the topic that what is meant by cognitive age. So if I take D in the beginning, then D be AC. So D, cognitive age is a psychological construct that refers to one's subjective assessment of one's age. B, a person may feel young or old irrespective of their chronological age. So it says that cognitive age is different from chronological age. Then it goes on to talk that past research has uncovered the fact that cognitive age is inversely related to life satisfaction among the elderly. What does it mean? That is, the younger an elderly person feels, the more likely he or she is to be satisfied with life in general. So then D, B, A, C becomes my best possible thing. Correct? So D, B, A, C, clearly my answer B. Okay. Next. Online, not many responses. I hope everybody is following me there as well.
See.
C.
It was a fascinating, tempting green, like the hue of the great green grasshopper. Her teeth were very white and her voice had a cruel and at the same time a coaxing sound. While she was uncorking the bottle, I noticed how green her eyeballs were. C introduces the color and A goes ahead with what type of color it is. It goes on to describe the color. So C has to be followed by A. And there's only one option where C is followed by A. Even without looking at the third and the fourth line, I have to mark C, A, D, B because there's only potential answer in this case. 100% C, A, D, B. Right? Definitely an easy one. Okay. Which one? C, D, B, A. The true test of intelligence is not how to do, but how we behave when we don't know what to do. These are at best only indicators of something. What are the D says these are at best only indicators. So these refers to what?
So A.
BDAC. BDAC, if I go by it, B says when we talk about intelligence, we do not mean the ability to get a good score on a certain kind of test or even the ability to do well at school. Followed by these are at best only indicators of something large, deeper, and far more important. So B definitely can be followed by A, right? Because B specifically talks about various abilities, and D then says these abilities are the indicators of something. So anywhere where D comes before B is eliminated. So B cannot be my answer in this case. Then A, by intelligence we mean a style of life, a way of behaving in various situations, and particularly in new, strange, and perplexing situations. Followed by C, the true test of intelligence is not how to do, but how do we behave when we don't know what to do. So then B, D, A, C definitely makes sense, not C, D, B, A, because these has to be preceded by something, because these indicates to something which has already been talked about. So then B, D, A, C becomes my best option. Everyone with me on this? Online? Guys, when you're giving me the answer to a particular example, please make sure you enter the question number as well. It's there on the top left of the screen. So I should know which question you have responded to. So please enter the question number and then the answer option which you want to answer. Okay. Next. CADB. The fourth one.
Option A.
Option A. ACBD. Okay. Let's see. In formal speech, syllables are likely to be more deliberately sounded than in informal speech. The pronunciation of words is influenced by the situation. Yet, dictionary editors have no choice but to deal with each word as an individual entity. Further, the pronunciation of a word is affected in that sequence. So first option definitely doesn't work. Now you want to go for ACDB. Okay. In formal speech, okay, tell me something. When you're talking, do you first give specific details and then give the introduction, or do you introduce a topic and then explain it? Explanation first and then the topic, or topic first and then the explanation? Okay. A says in formal speech blah 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 and informal speech something something. And C says pronunciation of words is influenced by the situation.
Topic is C.
C is the topic that pronunciation is affected by the situation. And then A goes on to say that if it is formal, what happens? If it is informal, what happens?
So C starts.
And further, it is also affected by the position in blah 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 blah. But despite all this, dictionary editors have no choice but to deal with each word as a single. Although pronunciation varies according to situation, in a dictionary the editors have no choice but they have to take each word individually. So B is a complete conclusion. More than a conclusion, it's an ender for the entire thing, because C, A and D are all about pronunciation, and B talks about how dictionary creators have to handle with it. So B at the end definitely makes sense, eliminating A and C as the options. And then because A and C have to be in the reverse order, C and then A, so B gets eliminated. So my best possible answer in this case definitely remains as D. CADB is the best possible option. Did you get why ACBD or ACDB will not work? Right? CADB is the best. You generally talk about, you introduce a point and then you elaborate on it. Now here the first and the sixth sentence are already in place. So you only have to arrange A, B, C and D between them.
Option B.
CBAD. So 1 followed by CBAD and 6. Is that what you're saying? Let's see if it is CBAD. Does it make sense? Amount of published information available varies widely by industry. However, it is always possible to gain some important information about an industry from published sources, and these sources could be aggressively pursued. Generally, the problem the researcher will face in using published data for analyzing an economically meaningful industry is that they are too broad or too arranged to fit the industry. Unfortunately for the researcher, many industries do not meet these criteria and there may be little published information available. Larger the industry, the older it is, slower the rate of technological change, better blah 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 blah, and then if a researcher starts searching for data, does everything fit with each other? What about this?
DACB. C.
One second. If I go with CBAD, right? A talks about industries do not meet these criteria. So these criteria refers to some criteria which I should already have been mentioned. Is there anything in 1C or B which fits that definition of being a criteria? For something to be referred as these criteria, there must be some criteria defined. So as this is an A, if you go with CBAD, then 1C or B should have some criteria in them. Does 1C or B have any criteria in them? So then B is not a great option.
C or D? C or D? D, I think so. D.
Fourth option,
C or D?
C or D. So between DACB and BDAC,
Because A will be followed by D as per the.
let's see. A talks about criteria and you take a look at D. D says larger the industry, older it is, slower the rate. All these are criteria: size of the industry, age, rate of technological change, better the availability. So then D definitely has to be followed by A. And D followed by A, that eliminates ACBD as the answer, that eliminates CBAD as the answer. So now the point is, do I go with DACB or do I go with BDAC? Right?
So, but it cannot end with the line generally the problem the researcher will face. It can end with however, is it always possible.
So which one you are going for?
D, I think so.
Huh?
D.
D. If I go with DACB, C, then amount of published information available varies widely by the industry. D. Larger the industry, older it is, slower the rate of technological change, better the available published information. Okay. A says, unfortunately for the researchers, many industries do not meet this criteria. There may be little published information available. Okay. However, it is always possible to gain some important information about an industry from published sources. These sources should be aggressively pursued. Generally, the problem the researcher will face in using published problem is that they are too broad array. C ke baad B immediately does not seem to follow because then it is changing track too suddenly. But if I go with BDAC, amount of published information available varies widely by industry. Generally, the problem the researcher will face in using published data for analyzing an economically meaningful industry is that they are too broad or too arranged to fit the industry. Okay. Larger the industry, older it is, slower the rate of technological change, better the available published information. Unfortunately for the researcher, many industries do not meet these criteria, maybe little published information available. However, so it says there may be little published information available. However, it is always possible to gain some important information about the industry from published sources, and these sources should be aggressively pursued. And finally, if a researcher starts searching for data with this reality in mind, the uselessness of blah 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 blah. So BDAC works better than DACB does. It matches more criteria than the other option, and hence the best option to pursue in this case could be BDAC rather than DACB. Getting that? Online? Okay. Next one. A. AVDC. The main source of power in industrial undertaking is electricity. Electricity from water also requires enormous river valley projects. How can A be the starter? Because if it also requires something, there must be some requirement before it.
Then C for sure. So because A and B will be together, it's contrasting sentences.
So so A cannot be the starter, so ABDC is out. Now you want to go with DABC?
Because A and B are together.
Let's see. The main source of power in industrial undertaking is electricity. Then we go with D, but the production of electricity needs huge quantities of coal. Okay. Electricity from water also requires enormous river valley projects involving large expenditures. Both are negatives. B. In contrast, electricity from atomic power station will result in tremendous savings in expenditure. C. And besides, the mineral resources of the world required for generation of electricity are being rapidly depleted. Installation of atomic plants will help in meeting the shortage of these resources. So the resources mentioned is C, is also mentioned in 6. So C can be the statement just below this, and we have already seen that D and A have to be together in that sequence. So then D, A, B, C definitely makes the most sense. Right? A cannot be the starting simply because there were also. It indicates there has to be something before it. B for Bombay. DCAB. Intensity of competition in an industry is neither a matter of coincidence nor bad luck. The state of competition in industry depends on 5 basic competitive forces. Not all industry. D के बाद C का connection आ रहा है. D talks about the state of competition in the industry is depending on 5 basic competitive forces. Then C, not all industries have the same potential. And then the collective strength of these forces. It's jumping too badly between topics there. Whereas if you take a look at A, it says the collective strength of these forces. So that means I need some statement before it, which is defining what forces, or at least is introducing concept of forces, and that is there in D. The state of competition in an industry depends on 5 basic competitive forces. The collective strength of these forces determine the ultimate profit potential. So D, A together right? So this one eliminated, this is split, DA together in this. So if I go for BDAC, intensity of competition in an industry is neither a matter of coincidence nor bad luck. Rather, competition in the industry is rooted in underlying economic structure and blah blah blah. So it says what is competition not dependent on, and immediately it says rather it is dependent on this. So B definitely is a good starter. Then we have seen D and A have to be together. And finally C, not all industries have the same potential. They differ fundamentally in ultimate profit potential. So the final one C is also connected clearly with 6. So B, D, A, C, the third option is clear in every sense. Right? B, D, A, C definitely is together. बराबर 6. Okay. Next. CDAB. CDAB. If I have to go with CDAB, the general enemy of mankind, as people have discovered, is not science but war. Until now, they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. What is they have brought us to the doorstep of doom?
That was I was thinking. They can refer to war.
Science and war होगा तो that yeah it हो सकता है singular. They plural. So going with CDAB, one is not followed by C necessarily. D for Delhi. DABC. Okay? The general enemy of mankind, as people have discovered, is not science but war. The weapon which science gives us do not necessarily create war. These make war increasingly more terrible. It is found that there is peace. Science is constructive. When there is war, science is perverted to destructive ends. Science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. Until now, they have again, C में जो they है, if you say which option we are going with, DABC, तो B के बाद science reflects social forces. They have brought us. Fit नहीं होता pronoun.
Social forces.
So science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. Social forces have brought us to the doorstep of doom. थोड़ा बहुत लॉजिक भी तो यूज करेंगे. Social forces bringing us to the doorstep of doom. But if now that we have seen all the sentences, what technically could have brought us to the doorstep of doom? Weapons, because these make war increasingly more terrible. They brought us to the doorstep of doom. So D followed by C. Right. So then let us see the general. So if I go with DC and BADC, suppose DC, then B, science merely reflects the social forces by which it is surrounded. There is peace, then science is constructive. There is war, then science is perverted. So reflection of the surrounding social forces is explained in A. You introduce a concept and then explain it. So science reflects social forces by which it is surrounded. The concept, if it is surrounded by peace, it is constructive. If it is surrounded by war, it is destructive. So B, A definitely makes sense. And then D and C we have already seen that D, weapons, they make war more terrible. Until now they have brought us to the doorstep of doom. And having said all that, our main problem therefore is not to curb science but to stop war. So B, A, D, C, best possible sequence from the given options here. Right? A little bit of logical thinking and of course grammatic clues can help us identify this. With me? Next. Fourth one, BCBA. It will be foolish to deny that the countryside has many attractions to offer. So that means countryside does have many attractions. One soon gets tired of the same old scenes and creatures day in and day out. You don't start with a positive and immediately follow it with a negative. So A cannot be a starter. Now all of the remaining have D with them. Fine. B says, but there is another side of the picture. Contrasting C. Honesty and frankness of the country folks too is a refreshing change. So it is talking about the positives, but the word too, this is also a refreshing change. So there must be something which is good before this sentence. And D says there is lovely scenery, interesting and varied wildlife, blah blah blah. So many attractions in one is defined. What are the many attractions in D? Then also what is good is explained by C. Then there is the twist, there is another side. What is the other side? You get tired of the same old scenery and creatures, followed by 6, that loneliness and monotony. So D, C, B, A will be the sequence which makes the best sense here. Definitely an easy one. Online also getting this, okay. Correct? Okay. Next. A and B seem to be almost exactly the same sentence, too repetitive. Still you can work this out. D, A, B, C. One says a welfare state in the attainment of its objective must avoid coercion and violence. So one only talks about welfare state. 2. Communism implies the loss of something something. B also says communism implies. A and B are more or less the same sentence, so I will not play too much with them. But definitely both of them are regarding communism. And C says these are all serious disadvantages. So loss of freedom and expression and action, regimentation of life, all these are definitely serious disadvantages. So I don't know between A and B what comes what, but C definitely comes after it.
So A and B are same.
Yes, that's why A and B I don't know. A and B more or less is the same thing. Okay. Now D says communism aims at the welfare state and perhaps the completest form of the welfare state in most respects. One has introduced just the welfare state, and then D talks about communism being the completest form of welfare state. Although there is no such word as completest, but ठीक है, poetic license. So 1 and D are definitely connected. and C definitely is at the end.
Yes.
So then eliminated. D, A, B, C makes sense. Although A and B technically, because except for the first word, they are almost exactly the same sentence, are interchangeable with each other. Doesn't make much of a difference. But D and C are the clear way to go ahead in this. Right? Okay. Fourteenth. Second one. This one is relatively simple. One, human experience tends to show that the more we mix with a man, the more we come to dislike him. A says that the acquaintance with him ripens into intimacy. B says in the beginning we may feel greatly attracted. C says but on closer acquaintance. So definitely B comes before A and C. Then, so in the beginning we feel attracted, but on closer acquaintance we begin to perceive faults and shortcomings. And then when acquaintance ripens into intimacy, we are likely to become very keenly aware of defects and imperfections. So ultimately the truth is, nobody is free from faults and weaknesses. But while a man makes a show of his strong points and good qualities, he generally tries to conceal or cover his fault and defects. So the fault and weaknesses in D and faults and defects in 6 are also a connector. So B, C, A, D. Second one has to be my answer. Adhika, yeah, changed it. Okay, got it. Sure. Next. There are very nice and very easy indicators in this one.
B.
India's experience of industrialization is characteristic of the difficulties faced by a newly independent developing country. A says in 1947, India was undoubtedly blah blah blah. One talks about independence and A talks about 1947, so it is somewhere close to the beginning line because independence and 1947 they go together. Okay. B, Indian industrialization was the result of a blah blah blah. So this is a sentence related to the past.
Yeah. So पहले ही
Now C, today India ranks. D, even today however, C and D are both of the present.
Yes.
They definitely have to be somewhere towards the end, and A and B have to be in the beginning because we first talk of the past chronologically and then we talk about the future. So any option where A, B are not in the beginning, C, D are not in the end gets eliminated. C, D not in the end, this is possible. C, A, B, D, C, D has to be in the end. Sorry, C, D is in the beginning. This is clearly eliminated. Only this is possible because A, B in whatever order in the beginning and C, D in whatever order but at the end. So if I go with date line, timeline, chronology, like our Home Minister once said, "Aap chronology samajhiye." Right? So B, A, B, C, D, it has to be in that particular order. Got this one? Okay. So this is a quick jumbled passage thing that we did. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the first half was going to be short. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to torture you. by first of all asking you to take out a blank piece of paper, not piece of paper, a notebook and a pen to write things down. यहाँ पे नहीं, वॉशरूम पीछे है. Okay, so